I hadn't planned on making a video today, but obviously I am. I posted a short, which was a clip from my last trip out to Pearce Ferry, just as a cop out because I said I'd do a video every day. That was gonna be my video. But as I was doing that, and I was like Pearce Ferry, I hashtag Pearce Ferry. I'm like, yeah, I never really said much about Pearce Ferry, so maybe I'll look into it a little bit more. I was calling it an old Army airfield, and it's still really difficult to find any history on Pearce Ferry Airport specifically. But there's a lot of information on Pearce Ferry, and it just leads you down this rabbit hole, and it's crazy. And this certainly is not a history channel that I'm doing here, and because I just don't care to do that research or misquote it or whatever, and there's plenty of it out there. But Pearce Ferry was a ferry service that would bring people across the river back in the day. And there was also a Lee's Ferry, which was just upriver from that. And it was really to get the Mormon settlers south down into Arizona and New Mexico from Utah. And so Harrison Pierce was sent there as punishment from the Mormon Church, as I understand it. There's obviously, as I discussed in other videos, two sides to every story. But the Mountain Meadows Massacre, it's a crazy, crazy story. I think 1857, coincidentally on September 11th, there was a Mormon militia that partnered with the Paiutes to attack these immigrants from Arkansas. There's 120 deaths. They pretended to surrender and then took them, and I mean, it's crazy. Research it, look it up. There's movies, books. It's an insane story. And the reason I'm getting into all this is because I'm like thinking my memory's terrible, but I'm like, wait a minute, I know this story. Why isn't this story better known? And I'm like, wait, I do know this story. And I've been to that monument as I was on a motorcycle ride, an adventure bike ride with some friends in 2021. And we went to that site, and that reminded me of a story. And I don't know if I'm getting off topic here, but anyhow, so I'm not a great motorcycle rider. My buddy's way into it, and they invited me on this ride, and these guys are all like, they own motorcycle shops, they're pro riders, they're whatever, and I'm just a dude that just bought a bike to go along on the ride with them. And so I convinced my buddy Jason to come down, and he comes down from Oregon, and we go on this, well, I don't want to spoil it, but it was a 1,600 mile ride is what we ended up doing, all up through Moab from Vegas and everything. It was amazing. It was great. But on the first day there, it was like high wind advisories, like 40 mile an hour winds. These guys all ride at like 100 plus miles an hour everywhere. It was like, you're getting, half the time when you pass a semi, you're getting sucked into it. The other half, you're getting blown away from it. Like, it was just like, I've never felt like I was gonna die as much as I did on that trip. And so we get to Kanab, our first night there, and I am just like, I don't know that I'm gonna continue on with this. This is just, it's not worth it. I really felt like I was gonna die a couple times. And we hadn't even gone off road yet. This is just on the highway. And it was really just primarily because the winds were so strong and just unpredictable, and it was very sketchy for me. And so anyway, we're staying in this little motel, whatever, and I am not a religious person at all, but I like they say, what do they say? there's no, in the time of war, there's no atheists in a foxhole. Kind of similar deal. Like, I mean, I really felt, like, not similar. I don't mean to make that comparison at all, but I felt almost imminent death. Like, because it was forecasted again for the next day for really high winds. I mean, on my tank bag, I had a picture of my family because I was just like, don't die. And anyhow, I muster up this little bit of religion that I can find inside of myself, and I'm like, just give me some kind of sign. Like, dude, I was so torn. Do I just turn around and give up and go home? Is it worth it? It's not worth it. Or do I go on this adventure? And I'm in there's just nondescript room. There's nothing there, whatever. So I open up the little blinds of the motel and the parking lots outside. And I mean, I'd never been hit by a sign so obvious to me. It was crazy. There was, I think, there's about 25 of us on this ride. I don't think we'd met up with everybody just yet, but anyhow, so I hadn't even met really hardly any of the guys yet or anything. And so one of the guys is out there loading up his bike, and because they're adventure bikes, so we had all our gear on our bikes and our whatever and stuff, we had the saddlebags and stuff on there. And this guy's loading up his bag. He's got one arm. He's riding in the same conditions I am, and I'm holding on for dear life with two hands, and he's riding with one arm. I'm like, all right, if he's doing it, I can do it. And so I did it. It turns out, awesome guy. His name is Bandit. What's up, Bandit, if you're one of the 60 people watching. And he lost his arm as a child, and he was just always into motorcycles and had his motorcycle set up. I believe he only has his left arm, which is, so throttle is switched over to the left side, and he has it all set up. And I mean, these bikes are big, heavy, 1,000cc, and adventure bikes are, I went on a couple rides. I'll never do it again. They kind of suck at everything. They tried it. It's like a jack of all trades, kind of like me. It's can do a lot of different things, but it's not good at any of them. It's not great on the road, and it's not great off road. But it could do both. Anyhow, he he was my motivation to carry on. And so here's some pictures of some of our ride, and me and Jason with Bandit. But anyhow, that kind of all brought me to, because we went by that Mountain Massacre, Mountain Meadow Massacre site on the ride. And I don't know if I couldn't find any pictures, I don't think, of it, but really crazy story that it happens during the time of Civil War. Like, when the Mormons came to Utah, Utah wasn't even a state. It just shortly after it became a state. It was part of the Mexican territory, I believe. So anyhow, crazy history. When you're younger, that seems like eons ago. But when you become 50, 50 years is attainable now. And so blocks of 50 just doesn't seem that far ago, even though it was even longer than when I was a kid. But it seems like 1857 wasn't that long ago. So look into that. It's a crazy story. So I said there was 2 ferry services. There was, I noticed I'm not looking at the camera at all, huh? There was Lee's Ferry. Lee was actually convicted and hung. I don't know if martyr is the right word, but He was sentenced to death in an exchange that they didn't prosecute anybody else for those murder. They killed 120 people. They had 18 kids that survived. They took the youngest one apparently per one of the surviving children, who was 4 at the time, described this story as the 18th was a 12-year-old girl that they figured was too old to know anything, or she was too old to remember this and could tell the story, so they killed her in front of all of them. Really just crazy, but you know, the accuracy of the story, who knows? I don't know, but yeah, pretty well documented, but not well known, I don't think. You know, compared to, you hear about all the civil wars, you don't hear about the Mormon War too much, because the Mormons were in battle with the U.S. government. Yeah, so anyhow, so Harrison Pearce did not get tried for murder, but he was sent there to run this ferry down what I feel is beautiful as punishment. But anyway, so in doing some research too, one thing I thought was pretty interesting, and this kind of coincided with the second group of people that did show up there, the tourists, which they came across it by accident, because there are no signs going up saying that this is Pearce Ferry Airport or anything like that. But there was a review. It was tied in, Pearce Ferry's name was tied into a review of the Grand Canyon Skywalk, which is like that clear glass bridge that the natives built. You know, it's like kind of a tourist destination or whatever. And it was a 1-star review of that bridge, and it said you get a way better view for free if you go to Pearce Ferry Airport. And I've not been to the Skywalk Bridge, but this group, there's I think 5 of them or so, that was from Clearwater, Florida. I was talking to one of the guys, and one of the other guys had walked off to kind of like the point just around the corner, and the guy's phone rings that I'm talking to, and it turns out it's the other guy, and he's like, "You're missing the best photo of your life right here. This is the most beautiful view I've ever seen." And so there's kind of similar story to what this review had said as well, is that because they had just come from Skywalk, I believe, as well, and it was way better. So yeah, I guess kind of a little review on Pearce Ferry, a little history on it, and yeah, and there's my video for the day. We'll see you tomorrow. This button never works.